Hey everyone, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. Bad news keep coming in for Russia and they are not gonna stop. It's only gonna get worse. Firstly, a quick comment about the situation on the Kharkiv direction. So, a lot of sources are claiming that in this area, Russians, because of the pressure of the Ukrainian armed forces, are withdrawing their forces from the north. And I want to dispel that. This is not true. The Ukrainian forces on the ground are advancing slowly, like maybe a couple of streets a week. But Russians are not withdrawing. They're still trying to fight. They're still trying to resist. And Ukrainians are moving in as fast as they can, given the resources they have. Then looking at the other part of the front line, specifically Avdiivka direction, here Russians are really trying to move forward to reach the highway that connects two major strongholds, Pokrovsk and Konstantinivka of Ukraine. And they're using this highway over here to deliver a lot of logistics. Russians wants to move forward, but the fact is that they are a little bit in a vulnerable position right now. So now they're focusing on expanding their flanks. More specifically, they were focusing on doing it on the south, and there is also pressure on doing it to the north. So as Russians are going to expand the flanks a little bit more, they will continue advancing towards the highway. So far, Ukrainians are still not able to fully stop the Russian advances. They are slowing down. It's not as fast, but the fighting is still hard and Ukrainians are still trying to do what they can, as Russia is still dedicating a lot of resources. To give you a little bit better perspective, I want to again come back to the chart that I'm tracking over here, which is combat engagements per week. I've simplified the chart and hopefully you can follow along now. So here on the right, you can see the directions. Each direction is represented by its color and they're listed from top to bottom. And here in the main chart area, we see the same colors, which are directions from left to right. So whatever is on the top is also on the left and the right. And here from the bottom up, we see on the bottom the week 18, and on the top it's the week 26, which was the last week that just passed. So essentially, the more up we go, the more current the situation is. So what do we observe here? Well, we see that in the last week there was 858 combat engagements that Ukraine had. And during this period, we now can see which directions had a significant increase in combat and which have not. Firstly, I want to note that the intensity is increasing. And secondly, I want to look at specifically the orange and the green parts of the chart here, which are respectively Siversk direction and Liman direction. What specifically happened there? And what happened is Russia got their face caved in. Russia cannot be strong everywhere. I already explained to you many times that Russia is having trouble as their ambitions are larger than their actual capabilities. And the only way that they were able to advance and fight Ukrainians is because Ukrainian military became weaker due to the lack of resources rather than Russians becoming stronger. So now as the Ukrainian resources are coming back in, not only Ukrainians are effectively stopping Russians on certain attack directions and ruining Russian plans as attacking the north or towards Kharkiv direction, but also they are counterattacking. More specifically, there has been reports that Ukrainians were able to move Russians away from the village of Terny in Yamkulivka, regaining some of the ground in this area over here. And secondly, here towards the south, Azov brigade has been reporting that they have also been successful at moving Russians away from the more of the parts of the forest where they're located. This is great, and so far Russians in that area are reporting that if situation is not stabilized, this can get really, really bad. So Ukrainians are purposefully increasing the tempo. Ukraine is transitioning from the absolutely total defense, which is still present somewhere in the area of Avdiivka, where they are still trying to stop the Russian advances, and they are instead going into the active defense mode, where they are attacking Russians and retaking some of the territory. This will force Russians to reconsider where they can dedicate their resources. So if before Russians had all the initiative on the front line, so they were selecting where do they send their resources and reinforcements and where do they attack, now Ukrainians are posing dilemmas for them, as now they are applying pressure where Russians are not as strong. Now, is this going to change the situation fast? Probably not, but it's still worth noting. Then a piece of curiosity coming your way. Do you have any recollection about this monstrosity over here? If you do, good job. But this is a Russian universal mobility vehicle with a ship turret that was attached to it. It was one of the first Frankenstein monsters that Russia has produced on the front line. But we're interested here on this picture is specifically the vehicle itself, not the turret. The vehicle itself is called MTLB. And MTLB is essentially like a multi-purpose towing vehicle, lightly armored. And the point of this vehicle is that it was the working horse of the Russian military. It has been used for everything. It has been used for transportation, medevacs. It has been used for being like this monstrosity. They put equipment on it. They used it for attacks. It was the workhorse of the Russian military. Well, if you don't know, there are a couple of the OSINT analysts, for example, Jumpy here on Twitter. I'm going to link to him in the description. But Jumpy has been analyzing satellite images for the Russian MTLBs on the storages. And essentially, Russia is out of MTLBs. That's it. The satellite images that show that Russia is out, gone. It's non-existent. So when we're talking about Russia running out of the vehicle, the is already changing right now. Russia is out. The workhorse of the Russian military out of the storage. It's non-existent. Additionally, the BMD, the lighter version of the infantry fighting vehicle that Russia has, that they can drop from planes, that was designed to be dropped from planes, out of the storage also, not being used anymore. Now, obviously, there are other variations of MTLB, such as MTLB-U, which are more specialized and are more used for command and control vehicles or medevacs and so on. They're still there, but they are far fewer of them than the MTLB. The point that I'm making here, and Jumpy here is also there having an Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to leave a link if you're a data nerd like myself. Vehicles of Russians are going out. And moreover, the video from Covered Cabal, specifically covering the topic of the T-80 tanks, and this is one of the major tank family that Russia has. And what they shown here, essentially by looking at the warehouses, is that on this graph, most notably, you need to look at the thick orange line rather than everything else. Thick orange line is basically the best estimates of about where Russia realistically is with their tank supplies. And what you see here is that Russian tank supplies are due to about mid to end 2025. I want to underscore this because oftentimes we do have a feeling that Russia is endless. They just doesn't end, that whatever is happening on the front line is going to happen forever, that a year after Russia is still going to use the same tactics, still going to use the same equipment, and Russia is never going to end, that Russia is never going to run out of equipment or stuff, and there's never going to be a breaking point. There is a breaking point. Russian army is not as strong because any competent army with the resources that Russia has, with all my love to Ukraine, but they would be completely run over. And only the complete incompetence and stupidity of the Russian command, the corruption of the Russian regime, and absolute it's just bad. And because Russian military is so bad, they are only being kept afloat because they have enormous stockpiles from the Soviet Union. Not even North Korea, Iran, or anything else can even closely match how much stuff Russia has in their stockpiles. So when we're talking about Russia running out of equipment, it is not a joke. It is not something that's going to happen in 10 years or 5 years or something else. Certain types of equipments are already running out. Certain that's not been like a specialized equipment, but some like a warhorse, like MTLB, which was super important. That's why Russia needs to use like bikes. That's why Russia are making some kind of weird modifications of attacking units on bikes or scooters or whatnot, because they're running out of equipment, and it degrades the efficiency of the Russian military. And the more time goes on and the more resources and capabilities we will continue delivering to Ukraine, because Ukraine is receiving resources that are freshly made, or maybe they are freshly made for ourselves, and then we're able to deliver more of our older stocks to Ukraine. But the point still stands that as we increase our own production, we're going to deliver and grow the capabilities of Ukraine, with the caveat that only if we continue doing this, if we don't stop, there is zero, and I repeat, zero chance for Ukraine to lose. Absolutely none. The only way that Russia can maybe win is if we start doubting ourselves. Russia has this time frame, 2024, 2025, maybe up to 2026. And then their problems with equipment will be not just notable on paper, not just notable on spreadsheets, but they will be in reality. We're gonna see Russians literally fighting on scooters and fighting on their mobility vehicles, maybe personal mobility vehicles. We need to keep up and keep supporting Ukraine to destroy whatever ambitions and whatever potential Russia has to threaten the world. Fuck Russia, fuck Putin, and fuck their industrial military complex. And then unfortunately, I need to talk about certain sad, very sad news. This was the reason why the video is coming up today, not yesterday. As I was making a video yesterday, I just got very emotional and basically ruined all of my takes. If you've been in the pro-Ukrainian community, most probably you know Peter, or Pete from Project Constantine. He is a combat medic from South Africa. He has been fighting in Ukraine with the Ukrainian armed forces, and I never got the chance to properly speak with Pete. We only got a little bit of airtime together with. Sorry. Unfortunately, recently he passed away. He was killed by a Russian mortar shell that exploded next to him. It's a awful loss for the pro-Ukrainian community. Pete was one of the most compassionate people that I've ever saw from the outside. It takes a lot to be compassionate. It takes a lot to be empathic to the situation in Ukraine. But the lengths that Pete went were far beyond of what an average person that cares for Ukraine would do, right? Going to Ukraine, joining the Ukrainian armed forces, doing a lot of these charity work with the Project Constantine. Pete really, with the few moments, with the few even videos, or even listening to him at least once, it just felt that he's touched my heart. And maybe it's because it's overlapping all of the losses that encountered with me before, but it's very sad, and Pete obviously will be missed, and we'll try to make sure we continue the work that he started to support Ukraine. And a lot of people have been tagging me and asking to join the fundraiser that Pete started for the support of the Ukrainian armed forces, and I'm definitely going to be joining that fundraiser and our community for sure. But before we do that, we're just so close to finalize our community. Sorry, it's very hard to talk. To finalize our community donations that we do for the Ukrainian Women Veteran Movement for the medical evacuation truck. We are just $2,500 shy, so please, if you can donate, that would be very much appreciated. To do that, remember, they don't have really the bank account that they can work, so they were able to find a workaround with the PayPal. Once you go in onto the page that I linked in the description, just select the amount that you can donate or enter it customly. Then you can select the credit debit card here. After that, it will ask for your first name, last name, and an email. Just enter that and click next. And here it will ask for your card details. Now, this doesn't work, so don't ignore it. Instead, press this PayPal button right over here. After you press it, it will says donate to one-time PayPal. You click this and it will take you to a PayPal page. And here, after you translate it to English, you will be able to use a make contribution with a payment card. So essentially you will be able to use the card if you do not have PayPal. So if you could, please do that. Let's finalize this the goal. Let's get some more support for the Ukrainian armed forces. So more people are rescued, so we have less tragedies. Rest in peace, Pete. I'm very sorry that we're finishing this video on a sad note, but I hope that these emotions will make us more engaged and motivates us to do more, so less people experience this tragedy, emptiness, so more Ukrainians survive. I love you all, guys. Slava Ukraini, and I'll see you next time.
This is a justified self-defense. This is a justifiable action that Ukraine is engaged in. We are fighting a holy war. This is pure good versus pure evil. So I'm not traumatized, and my brothers out there are not traumatized by the stuff that they have to get up to every day. But what is painful is the look on these boys' faces when they come to me, and they are, half their body is missing. Some have got no arms, some have got no hands, some have got no jaws, some have got no legs, some have lost their entire units, and I try and give them a little bit of hope everywhere I go. I've got a lot of friends in the army, and they message me regularly, and I never ever get any happy messages anymore. It's just it's destitution, and it's pain is everywhere. It's palpable. You can cut it with a knife. It's pain and it's frustration, and there's a sense of I wouldn't say hopelessness, because there's a lot of fighting spirit in Ukraine, but things are, for want of a better word, desperate. I live with soldiers. I see soldiers every single day. I want to see happy soldiers. I want to see optimistic soldiers. I want to see soldiers that aren't somehow possessed by the knowledge that there's a very good chance that we're going to die when we go to the front, because there is no artillery to back us up. I want to work with soldiers that are encouraged by the fact that, you know what, we have been spending 3 months on the polygon training, on the training grounds. We've got the skills to go and make a difference. Wouldn't it be great if we also had somebody with a big caliber artillery machine 12 kilometers behind us that can back us up if we really get into trouble? Those kinds of things provide optimism. Those kinds of things help the fighting spirit. But we don't have those kinds of things. We are holding 5.45 millimeter caliber rifles, and we're facing Russian rockets and jets and cluster munitions. We can't do this on our own. We need your help. We're stopping them. We're stopping them from Poland. We're stopping them from Estonia. We're stopping them from the rest of Europe. But how many of us do you want to sacrifice? Why does it have to take so long? All we want is a few artillery shells and a few aircraft. The rest we do ourselves.